Welcome to the deep dive, everyone. Ready to dive into a case that really shook things up, the murder of Becky Bleifnick.
Yeah, this one really gets you thinking, huh? About those families that seem perfect from the outside.
Exactly, like something straight out of a true crime show, right? Normal life, then bam, tragedy. And we're going to start, well, with Becky. Amazing nurse, devoted mom, 3 kids.
The kind of person, who makes those Halloween costumes by hand, keeps every school project, makes it all the more, well, shocking when you see how it ends.
Heartbreaking's the word. And all this happening as she's about to finalize her divorce from Tim Bleifnick.
Can't ignore that. The marriage, the divorce, it's all a huge part of the story. Becky, she felt trapped. The emotional abuse, worrying about her safety, her children's.
I was reading her text to friends, and she talks about Tim screaming, shoving her, throwing stuff, even filed those protection orders, worried about him and his dad too.
Right. And Tim, he denied it all. Said she was making it up, harassing him, even filed his own protection order against her, but the judge said no. It's like that pattern, right? The abuser becomes the victim, tries to twist things around.
Gaslighting, it's called. Makes you doubt your own mind. And for Becky, those fears, they weren't just in her head. She was found shot 14 times in her own bathroom. Her father found her.
Brutal. It wasn't just violence, it was a message. Someone wanted her silenced. Permanently.
So where do the police even start? How do they untangle all this?
Like always, the crime scene. Signs of forced entry, a shoe print, 9mm casings. Oh, and this weird thing. Fragments of plastic. Different colors. Who would have thought those be important?
Yeah, like that saying, every contact leaves a trace.
Exactly. And those traces, they started pointing towards Tim.
Hold on, so how'd they go from a random break-in to thinking it was Tim? Was there, a smoking gun?
Yes, not literally, but red flags galore. Neighbor security cameras. There's a suspicious guy hanging around Becky's place days before the murder. And guess what? When that guy spotted, Tim's phone. Off. Every time.
Like he was trying for an alibi, right? And no record he was there.
Could be. But then they get into his online stuff. Turns out Tim's a bit of a Googler.
You mean those searches? I remember hearing about those, how to get away with murder, that kind of stuff.
Not quite that obvious, but still bad. He looked up how to open a window from the outside. Same as the forced entry at Becky's. Also, average police response time in Quincy. Planning an escape, maybe?
Like he thought he was smarter than the cops, trying to stay one step ahead.
Then there's this. How to make a homemade pistol silencer. Remember those plastic bits? Turns out, Tim read this article about using a plastic bag for that, and guess what they found at his place? Bags. Same colors as those fragments.
Ookie, right. Too much to be a coincidence. Wait, wasn't there something about a crowbar, too?
You bet. They searched Tim's basement, found a crowbar, could have been used to force entry. More circumstantial, but it adds up.
So we've got the suspicious behavior, the Google searches, the crowbar. It's all kind of pointing at Tim. But
Yeah.
then there's this weird thing with a game show, right? That's where it gets really interesting.
Ah, yes. The Family Feud appearance didn't seem like a big deal at the time, but boy, did it become one.
Right. I remember this. He says something, well, pretty incriminating, doesn't he?
They ask him about the biggest regret from his wedding, and Tim goes, "Honey, I love you, but said I do."
Whoa. Hearing that now, knowing what we know,
Hmm.
chilling is right. Did he ever explain himself?
Later, he said it was just a joke, but a lot of people saw it as, a sign of his real feelings about the marriage, maybe even foreshadowing.
Hard to believe it's just a coincidence, right? But before we get to the trial and what came out of that Family Feud thing, let's look at the families here. How were things between Tim and Becky's family?
Not great. Becky had told her family she was worried about Tim's dad, Raymond, said he had a history of child abuse. She even filed a protection order to keep him away from her kids.
Adds another layer to this, doesn't it?
Uh-huh.
What did Tim say about all that?
Becky said he threatened her. Said if she talked about his dad's past, Raymond might hurt himself. Downplayed it all. Said his dad was only a threat to girls, like their sons were safe or something.
That's messed up. So Becky's caught in the middle, trying to protect her kids, dealing with their dad who's volatile is putting it mildly.
You got it. She was scared for her kids, and that fear, well, it played a big role in how things went down.
So we're left with Becky, scared, things getting worse with Tim, the searches, the crowbar, that Family Feud thing. Did they have enough to, actually convict him?
Well, they built the case around Tim wanting the kids all to himself and not wanting to pay up in the divorce. That he planned it all out, killed her for those reasons.
So not some out-of-control moment, but, cold-blooded.
Exactly. They laid out a timeline, used those searches, the crowbar, the plastic bits, witnesses, everything, to show, hey, this guy was planning this for a while.
Scary thought that someone could be that
Right.
cruel. What up Tim's side? Did they try to, like, poke holes in that story?
Oh, yeah. His lawyer, the divorce attorney, went all in on reasonable doubt, said the DNA wasn't clear-cut, those Google searches, no exact times on them, could have been any time, plastic fragments, who knows where those came from, really.
So picking it apart, saying it doesn't prove anything for sure.
Right. And they tried to make Tim seem, well, human. Loving dad, falsely accused, talk about him helping out in the community, good reputation, even that he was going to donate his hair to cancer patients.
Classic move, right? Make them doubt, tug at the heartstrings a bit. But there was that thing with his lawyer, wasn't there? Didn't she know Becky?
Oh, yeah, that became a whole thing. She'd known him both for years, Tim and Becky. And she starts talking about Tim being a good guy, no violence in the marriage, all based on what she thought she knew.
Sounds like a conflict, right? Like, shouldn't she be out of there? Did they try to get her off the case?
They did. Said her opinions didn't matter, the evidence was the evidence. Reminded everyone, hey, no bruises doesn't mean there's no abuse, no fear. Things can escalate, even if you don't see marks.
True. Abuse isn't always, well, visible. So, all this arguing back and forth, what did the jury say?
4 hours they talked, then came back. Guilty. On everything. The 2 murder counts, the home invasion.
Wow, so they believed the prosecution, even with the defense trying to muddy the waters. What was it like in the courtroom when they said that?
Tense. You could feel it. Becky's family, friends, you could see the relief, but other stuff too, all mixed up. Finally, some justice,
Had to be a huge moment for them, seeing him held responsible. What about Tim? Any reaction?
Throughout the whole thing, he was stone-faced, like no emotion. Even when they said guilty, nothing.
Creepy almost, like what's going on in his head. Did you say anything afterwards?
Not right then. But later, at the sentencing, he still said he didn't do it. But before they gave him his sentence, Becky's family got to speak.
Powerful stuff, I bet. What did they say?
Her mom talked about, the pain of losing her daughter like that, senseless, violent. Described Becky, how full of life she was. A great mom, her whole future stolen.
Can't even imagine how much anger, sadness she must be carrying. Anyone else speak?
Becky's sister, she really hit hard on how this affected the kids. Not just losing their mom, but knowing their dad did it.
Man, that's a wound that never heals right. To grow up with that, did any of it get to Tim?
Nope. Still no reaction. Like, he didn't care. Made Becky's family even angrier. Like, he was just blank.
So messed up. No empathy at all. So given what he did, how bad was the sentence?
The judge gave him life, no parole. Said the murder was planned. Brutal. Tim took away a mother, daughter, sister, friend. Left a hole that can't be filled.
The worst they got, huh? Had to give Becky's people some peace, knowing he's locked up forever.
Yeah.
But is that the end of it? Really?
Not so fast. Tim's lawyers, they weren't done. Filed an appeal, trying to get it all thrown out.
Seriously. Even with the life sentence, they're still going. What were they saying?
3 main things. They said some of the evidence shouldn't have been allowed. The crowbar, the Google searches, people talking about Tim's behavior, all that.
So, like, back to square one, saying it wasn't enough to convict him. Did it work?
Some of it. The court said most of the evidence was fine, but there was this document, a complaint against Judge Adrian, the one on Tim's case. That should have been given to the defense.
Wait, a complaint against the judge? What was that about? Why didn't anyone know?
They didn't say what it was, just that not telling the defense, that could have messed up Tim's right to a fair trial. So they ordered another hearing to see if that missing info actually changed things.
So not a whole new trial, but a hearing. What was that supposed to do?
To figure out if that document about the judge would it have made a difference back then. Tim's side had to prove that, if they'd known, things would have gone differently.
Sounds like a long shot, but hey, who knows? With the law, right? What happened? Did they win?
They had the hearing, all that, but the judge said, nope, that document, it didn't change anything. Basically, even knowing about it, the jury still would have said guilty.
So even though the appeal found that mistake, it wasn't enough to get Tim a new trial or out of jail.
Yep. Bad news for Tim, but for Becky's family, it meant, okay, justice is still being served.
Up and down, up and down. Must have been tough on everyone. But even with the legal stuff seemingly done, there's still that thing with Tim. He still says he's innocent.
You got it. Convicted, life sentence, and he still says he didn't do it. Says he loved his wife, he's wrongly accused, wants to be with his kids.
Hard to square that with, how the murder happened and all the evidence against him. Has he said anything else? Explain Becky dying or why all that stuff pointed to him?
He just keeps saying, I didn't do it. Says the cops had it out for him from day one, didn't look at anyone else. Says those Google searches, they don't mean anything. Could have been any time, maybe after Becky died. Just being curious.
Tough to buy that, with how specific those searches were and when he did them, right around the murder, and that guy lurking near her house. And that family feud thing, that doesn't help his story.
Nope. That clip, it's followed him, made people doubt him even more. He says it was a joke, but the timing, everything else, it's hard to believe.
Definitely makes you think. But hey, that's what we do here, right? Dive deep. So here we are, end of the road, legally speaking. But Tim, he's still saying he's innocent. Hard to wrap your head around right after everything.
Yeah, it's tough. He's stuck to his story, didn't kill Becky, loves his kids, wants to be with them. Whole victim thing.
But does that fit with how it all went down? The evidence, the jury saying he did it? Has he said anything about how he was feeling back then when Becky died?
He has. He talks about losing his wife, being away from the kids, how hard it's been, fighting to clear his name while grieving, all that. Trying to make sense of it, he says.
Sounds rough, I'll give him that. But it doesn't explain the cold, calculated stuff, The planning, those searches, and that family feud answer. That's hard to ignore.
That clip, it's become a symbol almost. People who think he's innocent, they try to explain it away. But for others, it's like proof right there. He says it was a joke, but the timing, everything else.
It's just unsettling. Makes you question everything, everyone involved. Truth's hard to find, especially when emotions are running high and the stakes are, well, life and death.
This whole case, it reminds us things aren't always what they seem. Even nice neighborhoods, bad stuff happens. A community trying to heal, a family shattered, the courts trying to figure out justice.
Becky's case, it keeps people talking. Makes us think about domestic violence, how much those online trails matter, and how we decide what's true when people can twist things so easily.
We got to look deeper, question what we think we know, because behind the headlines, there's always more to the story. Real people, real feelings, and the impact, it goes way beyond the courtroom.
And that's what we do here on The Deep Dive. Go deeper. If you're into this kind of stuff, hit that subscribe button. We've got more stories to tell. And remember, even when things are dark, there's always hope, always someone out there who cares. Thanks for listening.